everyone. This is Reverend Dr. Roger Paul, and this is Reverend Diane Silverhawk, and this is the 5th Epical Revelation Fellowship, and tonight is July 24th, 2013, and tonight we're going to study the Urantia book paper 115, The Supreme Being, and that starts on page 1260. Thank you for joining us.
Why is your camera frozen? You and Diane are just sitting there looking forlorn.
I don't know, it's probably Skype. Linda, would you say a prayer for us and get us started?
Sure. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this group tonight. Father, we thank you for this revelation. We ask that you bless us tonight with knowledge and wisdom and understanding as we read through this paper on the Supreme. We ask that you be with each one of us tonight, tomorrow, and the rest of the week, just to help us throughout our daily lives, and let us be ever conscious and aware that we're not alone, Father, that you are with us. We just commit all of this time to you tonight. We ask you to be with Roger and help him to keep his thoughts organized. Just give the rest of us the understanding that we need as we read through this. Father, we love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the Supreme Being, paper 115. Let's start for the very first paragraph. This starts on page 1260 again. Okay, and I'll start the first paragraph and we'll go from there. With God the Father, sonship is the great relationship. With God the Supreme, achievement is the prerequisite to status. One must do something as well as be something. So you have to do nothing to be a son of God, right? To just be a son. That's already a give me type relationship. But with God the Supreme, to move through the universe and achieve God, that means you have to do something, and the prerequisite for that is action. Okay, so we can't just sit on our laurels and do absolutely nothing. It's a process of searching and studying and trying to reach God. Okay, and that's what the Supreme Being is all about, is that God of action, that God of experience. Okay, Linda, why don't you take the very next paragraph. Let me explain something. Y'all can't see my video, can you?
You were moving for a while, but you're frozen again.
Okay. Well, if you have access to, Linda, you have access to the files at all? Can you see them?
Yes.
Okay. Let me explain what these two pictures is to Linda, and then you can look at them later, Millie. Basically, this is just a picture of God the Supreme and his relationship with the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is actually being eventuated right now, and that's happening through the Supreme Creators, the 7 Creator Sons, the 7 Supreme Creators, the Creative Mother Spirits, the Michaels, the Ancients of Days, and the 7 Master Spirits. Okay. Let's keep going. And another thing, the second slide is a picture of the Supreme Being coming from Havona. So we're going to find out tonight that the Supreme Being has come into existence from the Trinity. Okay, so if you'll take the very first paragraph, relativity of concept frames, Linda, we'll go from there.
Partial, incomplete, and evolving intellects would be helpless if the master universe would be unable to form the first rational thought pattern, were it not for the innate ability of all mind, high or low, to form a universe frame in which to think. If mind cannot fathom conclusions, it cannot penetrate to true origins. Then will such mind unfailingly postulate conclusions and invent origins that may have a means of logical thought within the frame of these mind-created postulates. And while such universe frames for creature thought are indispensable to rational intellectual operations, they are, without exception, erroneous to a greater or lesser degree.
Okay, so we have to come up with a framework of thought. And without that framework of thought, we create our own framework of thought. All right? And that's basically, if you think about the Old Testament, when they started telling the origins of the earth and the story of Adam and Eve, didn't they kind of create their own story there from what was passed down from generation to generation? Think about it. They didn't have all the information because it got lost over 39,000 years. So they created their own story. And what story? Where did that story end up? It ended up in the Old Testament, didn't it? Okay, and that's what they're talking about. All rational thinking beings have to have a universal framework to think, and that's what they're talking about here. We have to come up with some logical thought pattern from where we came from. All right.
Well, what's logical?
Huh?
What do we consider logical?
Well, that's what they're saying here. Is most of them are erroneous. They aren't logical, but they're logical to us, right? We make them up.
No, that's why I left the church. It wasn't logical.
Wasn't logical. Well, that's what they're saying here. That without exception.
I went out looking, and guess what? I found the Urantia book.
That's right. That's right. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But even the Urantia book, the way we think about it and the way we put it together may be erroneous. Even though we have the information, our concepts or our interpretation that could be wrong.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
Just like so many people misinterpret the Bible.
That's right.
Right, exactly.
That's why they say here they are without exception erroneous to a greater or lesser degree. So some concepts we come up with and some postulates we come up with are correct, but others are just flat wrong. Okay? But we still need that framework for us to build from, to start from somewhere to get to where we're going. Okay? And that's what this partial and incomplete intellects they're talking about. Okay? We have to come from somewhere. It says, if you cannot penetrate true origins, then the mind unfailingly postulate conclusions and event origins that may have a means of logical thought within the frame of the minds of these created properties. It may be right, it may be wrong.
You know, I think that with Adam and Eve, that was where I first read, the first thing I read in Urantia, and that meant so much to me because I had always wondered about the origin. I knew it was incorrect in the Bible. It was so incomplete, you know, and that gave me a point of reference so I could go forward, and then reading other parts of the Urantia book allowed me to go back, you know, so.
All right, now let's go to the next paragraph. This really is interesting. Oops, I went fold backwards. Okay. Nellie, you want to take the next paragraph?
I can do that. Conceptual frames of the universe are only relatively true. They are serviceable scaffolding which must eventually give way before the expansion of enlarging cosmic comprehension. The understandings of truth, beauty, and goodness, morality, ethics, duty, love, divinity, origin, existence, purpose, destiny, time, space, and even deity are only relatively true. God is much, much more than a father, but the Father is man's highest concept of God. Nonetheless, the father-son portrayal of creator-creature relationship will be augmented by those supermortal conceptions of deity which will be attained in Orvonton, in Harvona, and on Paradise. Man must think in a mortal universe frame, but that does not mean that he cannot envision other and higher frames within the thought which the thought can take place, within which the thought can take place. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I've got the concept, but I know that there's a bigger concept, and I will be able to understand it one day.
Yeah, you will be able to. But
The only thing I've got to work with right now is this brain and this mind,
that's right.
which are limited,
That's right.
greatly limited.
That's why they say here that the frames are only relatively true, isn't it? Because
Yes.
it's true to us the way we understand things. But they say all that'll fall away at like scaffolding when we get to the Morancha worlds and we get to Havona and that sort of thing, because our expansion of knowledge will be greater. Okay? Does that make sense? So as we understand,
I hope it happens.
yeah, we hope that happens anyway.
Expansion of knowledge.
That's right. As we get smarter and smarter, then the concepts will become clearer and clearer, and then all of our concepts that were just ridiculously stupid will just fall away like scaffolding. It's kind of like when they say in the mansion worlds, all these things not related to our spiritual progression, we forget, because it's like scaffolding that falls away. And this is exactly what they're talking about. And they say that even though our concept of Father, Son, that God is our Father and Creator, creature, even those concepts will be changed as we get closer and closer to deity and as we progress through our vaunted Havona and paradise, right? So as our mind expands, as our concept of God expands, so will our relationship. And that's part of what the Supreme does. It's the experiential part of God that allows us to expand indefinitely. Okay? So
I despair of the time it takes. But we're talking about going to Orvonton and Havona and paradise. This is billions of years
right.
ahead.
This is billions.
Let's talk about next year and next millennium. And let's talk about mansion worlds and where it might happen to be and what might go on.
Well,
stuff like that.
That's what this book is about, isn't it? You know, trying to learn this book. That is supposed to be now. That's why they gave us to expand our consciousness now, not for us to wait, right? So hopefully it's expanding our consciousness now. If
some of us not so much.
All right, you want to get the next one?
I'm open to it.
Yeah. Keep plugging along, Bella.
You'll
You'll get it.
hole and bore it in.
That's right.
In order to facilitate mortal comprehension of the universe of universes, the diverse levels of cosmic reality have been designated as finite, absonite, and absolute. Of these, only the absolute is unqualifiedly eternal, truly existential. Absonites and finites are derivatives, modifications, qualifications, and attenuations of the original and primordial absolute reality of infinity.
Okay, I don't know if Millie probably doesn't remember this, but remember when we talked about absolute being paradise, absonite being Havonal, and finite is the super universes? That's what they're talking about here, right? In order for us to understand this master universe, they've broken these down into 3 different levels, right? But actually, these levels all intermingle between each other, okay? In other words, there are absonite beings in paradise, and there's probably absonite beings working in the finite super universes, okay? So they broke this down just so we understand the levels of existence that we go through to get to the absolute. And all of this is attenuations or changes from a pattern. The pattern universe is paradise. Okay? So all we're doing is trying to progress spiritually until we get perfection like the beings in paradise. Because the finite and the absolute absonite beings have a beginning, some place in time, and they go on forever. But it's only the absolute that is really existential, and we're going to find that out a little bit later tonight. Okay? So let's keep going to the next paragraph here. Okay, I'll read the next one. The realms of the finite exist by virtue of the eternal purpose of God. Finite creatures, high and low, made propound theories, and have done so, as to the necessity of the finite in the cosmic economy. But in in the last analysis exists because God so willed. The universe cannot be explained. Neither can a finite creature offer a rational reason for his own individual existence without appealing to the prior acts and pre-existent volition of ancestral beings, creators or procreators. Okay, so the finite existence, us, who we are, exists because God willed it to be. That's just all there is to it. And we have no basis for understanding to understand something perfect like God. But God wills us to learn this, and that's what our progression up to paradise is. And it goes on to say here that without this rationale, reason for our own existence, without appealing to some pre-existing condition, like a God or God the Father, we can't come up with the concept of beginning, and that's what they're teaching us here, the volition of ancestral beings, creators, and procreators. Christ being our creator, the supreme being the experiential part of God, and God the Father being our God, right? The Father himself. Okay, so let's keep going. Linda, you want to take the next one? The absolute basis for supremacy?
From the existential standpoint, nothing new can happen throughout the galaxies, for the completion of infinity inherent in the I Am is eternally present in the seven absolutes, is functionally associated in the triunities, is transmittively associated in the triodities. But the fact that infinity is thus existentially present in these absolute associations in no way makes it impossible to realize new cosmic experientials. From a finite creature's viewpoint, infinity contains much that is potential, much that is on the order of a future possibility rather than a present actuality.
Okay.
That's nice to know.
Okay, let's break this down. The I Am is internally, from existence, nothing can happen throughout the galaxy for the completion of infinity inherent in the I Am. Present in the seven absolutes. Do y'all remember what the seven absolutes are? The seven absolutes are God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, paradise, right? The deity absolute, the unqualified absolute, and the universal absolute. Okay? That's the seven absolutes. And it talks about this, the in association with the triunities and the triodities, which we're going to go into detail later on tonight.
I thought we already went into detail on those. I'm still swimming in that.
Yeah, well, we're going to go through it, and it's going to become a little more clearer tonight. And then it goes on to say, from a creature viewpoint, infinity contains much that is potential. Now, how is that so? What they consider actual is things that's already happened, that already exist. That's the absolutes, right? Like paradise. The potential is what's to come in the future universes. And what's to come in the future universes is the experiential part of the Supreme coming into full fruition. And how does that happen? It happens through us and our experiencing going to paradise and meeting God the Father. So our experiences adds to the Supreme, and the Supreme comes into full fruition, and that is what they talk about as potential. Now, also potential means going out into the outer space levels. This never ends. They say here in the paper a little bit later tonight, they say, as far as the perfected beings is concerned, there is no such thing as an end, is there? Because everything is existential. It keeps going on and on and on and on. And it's the same way with the physical universes, the seven super universes and the outer space levels, and there'll be more and more and more and more past that, right? So those are all potentials. Everything that's not in existence now is a potential. And that's the difference between an actual and potential. An actual is something that's in existence right now, or a perfection which is in paradise, okay? All right, so let's go to the next one. Who read that, Linda? Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes. Value is a unique element in the universe reality. We do not comprehend how the value of anything infinite and divine could possibly be increased, but we discover that meaning can be modified, and if not augmented, even in the relations of infinite deity. To the experiential universes, even divine values are increased as actualities by enlarged comprehension of reality meanings.
Okay, so the supreme is that part of God that keeps increasing, isn't it? Think about
Oh,
that.
the biggest line here to me is divine values are increased as actualities by enlarged comprehension. The more you understand, the more you comprehend, and the more real it gets.
That's right. You're exactly right, Melly. That's exactly what they're talking about.
But in the last paragraph, that last sentence, from a finite creature's viewpoint, okay, I'm a finite creature.
Right.
Infinity contains much that's potential. That is on the order of, it's a possibility rather than a present actuality. To
That's
me,
right.
this is true.
Yes.
Infinity contains potential. It's not what I have now, it's what I can have.
That's right.
What
It's not
can-
actual.
Not what is, it's what can be.
That's right. It's not actuality yet. It's potential of something to come, right? To God, it's already actual, isn't it? To God, he sees the beginning and the end. But to us, it just seems like a potentiality, right?
I'm just muddling around in mud puddle.
Yeah.
There was this wonderful man who came and spoke to a group of us and had us go into meditation, try to imagine world peace. And afterwards, most of us said, yes, we could do that. And a few said we could. He said, if you can see it, it can be.
Yeah.
If you can imagine it, it can be. So I hang on to that. So what I'm looking from a creature's viewpoint at infinity containing much that is potential, future possibility rather than a present actuality. It's a future possibility. If I hang on to world peace in my head,
Yeah.
if I am peace, I can create peace. If I hang on to that, it can be.
That's right. It's taking a potentiality and making it an actuality, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think the next one.
The entire scheme of universal creation and evolution on all experiencing levels is apparently a matter of the conversion of potentialities into actualities, and this transmutation has to do equally with the realms of space potency, mind potency, and spirit potency.
Okay, so that same thing you were just talking about, Millie, works in the mind and works in the spirit and works in the material, all three, right? That's what they're saying here. That's exactly what they're saying here. We're converting potentialities into actualities, right? Okay, it's an easy one. Okay, the apparent method whereby the possibilities of the cosmos are brought into actual existence varies from level to level, being experiential in evolution in the finite and experiential eventuation in the absolute. Hang on, that's Rodney. Hello? Rodney? Yeah. Yeah. I don't see you online. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, there's only about 4 of us anyway, so it's not that big a deal. Okay. Okay. All right. It'll be out there tomorrow. Yeah. I'll see you Monday or Sunday morning. Okay. Sounds great. I will. All right. Bye-bye. That's Rodney. He can't make it. He can't get a connection up in Alaska from his house.
My brother-in-law, my former husband's youngest brother, just moved to Alaska. His cousin invited him to come stay with her, so he's up there. She runs the first computerized newspaper in Alaska.
Really?
Oh. What part of
Whatever,
Alaska, Millie?
I've forgotten all the words, but it looks gorgeous. It's just a
It is
beautiful
gorgeous.
place
It
that
is
he's
gorgeous.
landed.
Okay, let's get back here. The apparent method whereby the possibilities of the cosmos are brought into actual existence varies from level to level, being experiential evolution in the finite, experiential eventuation in the absonite, and existential affinity is indeed unqualified and all-inclusiveness. And this very all-inclusiveness must perforce encompass even the possibility for evolutionary finite experiencing, and the possibility for such experiential growth becomes a universe actuality through triadity relationships impinging upon and in the supreme. Now we're going to look at those triadity relationships in just a minute here. Okay, but let's go back here. The method of the possibilities are in the cosmos are brought into actual existence varies from level to level. Let's talk about these levels. In the finite, it's experiential evolution. That's what the Supreme does, right? Experiential evolves. It takes our experience and things evolve. That's from the finite, the 7 super universes. In the Havona, it's the experiential eventuation in the absonite. So in the absonite world of Havona, things are eventuated, but it's still through experience. Okay, the Supreme still gains experience even in Havona. That's the point here. Existential infinity, what's that? That's paradise, right? Is unqualified in all exclusiveness, but it must encompass even the possibility for finite experiencing. Why is that? Because even paradise has what? Finite beings coming to it, doesn't it? We go up the ladder and we eventually get to paradise, don't we? So even paradise has that experiential part of it going all the way up, beings going all the way to paradise.
Are we still a finite creature when we get to paradise?
No, we become finaliters. And then at that point, we become what? We become absolute, don't we? We share in deity with our thought adjusters, okay? And we go back to the God, the Father, and at that point we share in the deity relationship. That's a hard concept for us to get, that our trail goes from finite to deity. And that's what this trail is all about. We eventually become part of deity as finaliters. That's a hard concept.
Roger, if you think about it, if our personality came forth from the Father, and as we ascend, we completely get rid of everything that is physical and we become spiritual beings. We are essentially infinite as well.
That's right. That's right. And that's how we share in that deity too, isn't it, Linda? Mm-hmm. If you think about it. Because we get a father fragment, we fuse with that father fragment, and what does that father fragment do? It returns to God, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Everything that comes from God goes back to God. Everything that goes out from God comes back to God. And so that gives us part of deity. And it's a hard concept for us to learn, but our thought adjusters are still deity, aren't they? Mm-hmm. They're still part of God. Mm-hmm. So each and every one of us has a fraction of deity in us. So what our job to do is learn from that fraction of deity and copy that deity fragment, okay, become part of that deity fragment and share in the life of deity, share in the life and the realization of God. That's our whole job. Right there.
I was thinking about the eventuated beings, and I was, trying to think about whether or not we would ever experience that. But is the growth of the soul kind of like an eventuation?
It is, if you think about it. See, they can't even, it is so complicated, they can't even explain it to us in the Urantia book. There's a mystery about the growth of the soul. They can explain to us that the father fragment comes to us. They can explain to it that we get personality from the father fragment. They can explain to us that it's the infinite, it's the infinite spirit that gives us the mindal part of our existence, our mind, and they explain to us that our spirit part comes from who? The sun, right? That's all the parts. But what they can't explain, it's the intermixing of all these parts that creates the mortal soul. And it's this mortal soul that revives on the mansion world in this Morantia form.
Now you're saying mortal soul, you mean immortal soul?
Immortal. And it starts out as a mortal soul, and it becomes immortal when we hit the mansion worlds. Okay? But it's a mortal soul. It starts here. It's that spark of life that starts here. And they explain to us that we have a father fragment, we have a mind fragment, we have a spirit fragment, okay, and we have personality on top of that. And that part that makes us who we are is the personality. But totally separate from all of those four things is the evolving or the eventuation, if you would, of the soul. Right? So the soul is created from the combining of these four elements. The spirit you, the mindal you, the personality of you, and what? The thought adjuster.
But that is the evolutionary process.
That's the evolutionary process. That's what they're talking about. The possibility for evolutionary finite experience. Now, the question I have is this. Is it part of that soul that adds to the Supreme Being? Maybe so. Maybe the Supreme Being somehow takes that energy from the soul and takes the experience from that and adds to himself, right? And expands himself. I don't know.
I mean, it would seem to make sense because, the people who don't make it, their experience becomes part of the
Supreme.
Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
So that makes sense.
And we know nothing is wasted in the universe.
That word. Part of the what?
Part of the Supreme.
Okay.
Yeah, those who choose not to survive, okay, their experience becomes part of the Supreme. Their experience is not lost.
Right.
What else sticks around? They have a thought adjuster, okay? So the experience that the thought adjuster goes through stays with the thought adjuster also, doesn't it?
Right.
So anything that happens in the universe is never wasted. I mean, there is no such waste in the universe. There's only waste in our minds, right? The way we perceive them of things. But as far as the rest of the universe, there is no waste. That's why I keep coming back to, they talk about animals not having a soul, but the animals are taken care of by the creative mother spirit, are they not? And that energy in the creative mother spirit is not wasted either, is it? So, that energy must be reused in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Maybe in another animal. We don't know. They don't tell us. There's only so many things they can get in one book this size, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I just, not to change the subject, but earlier when we were talking about the framework and how we all need a framework, is this kind of like your worldview, how you view the world? Is that what we're talking about?
No, it's more of a universe view, really, because the framework.
I guess that would be a better word for it.
Yeah, it would be a better word because they're talking about the framework for all existence, that our concept of our existence, not just the world.
Words, I think a speaker's words.
No, okay. Not just
Does that harm everything? Does that make a bad noise?
I don't know. Let me.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback now.
Okay.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about the universe view, the framework.
Oh, the framework. Yeah, they're talking more about the universe view because really our view of the world is very small, isn't it? If you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I meant, though.
Yeah.
How you view the universe, how you view
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
You know, yes, I mean, some people don't view a universe; they just view the world.
Well, if you think about
Yeah.
early man, you know, I mean, back when the barbarians were walking around, the only view they had was the world view, wasn't it? I mean, that was their universal view, is the view of the world. And to many people walking around even today, that is their view, is the world.
Well, I think it's even much smaller than that. It's sometimes, you know, if you're raised in a rural area, it becomes just your immediate community, your
It
immediate
does.
family.
Yeah. But they're really talking more about the view of the concept of God, deity and God all the way down to man, you know, which is pretty large. You know, you're covering a lot of area there, right? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Number 3, original and actual and potential. Linda, you want to take that one?
The absolute cosmos is conceptually without limit. To define the extent and nature of this primal reality is to place qualifications upon infinity and to attenuate the pure concept of eternity. The idea of the infinite eternal, the eternal infinite, is unqualified in extent and absolute in fact. There is no language in the past, present, or future of Urantia adequate to express the reality of infinity or the infinity of reality. Man, a finite creature in an infinite cosmos, must content himself with distorted reflections and attenuated conceptions of that limitless, boundless, never beginning, never ending existence, that comprehension of which is really beyond his ability.
So they just told us, you know, no matter how they explain it to us, we still have no way of understanding it, do we?
Yes, we can.
But you know, it makes sense that once we leave here and we go to the mansion world, we'll have a whole different universe view because we will have passed on, so we're going to think about things in a whole different way from that point on.
Yeah.
But we can't really know that until we do that. So.
That's right. That's right.
We could only imagine and read about it, learn about it, but
Yeah.
You still have to experience it.
Yeah. And all they're doing in this paragraph is just breaking it down, you know, from the infinite eternal, the eternal infinite, the unqualified in extent, and the absolute. In fact, the absolute being paradise, right? And they say basically we don't have any language to express this to you to make it make sense to you.
Not
right?
even in the future.
Not even in the future. That's right.
We had to go out and then there was no water, all that good stuff.
All right, Millie, you want to take the second paragraph under 3?
All right. My mind can never hope to grasp the concept of an absolute without attempting to first break the unity of such a reality. Mind is unifying of all divergences, but in the very absence of such divergences, mind finds no basis upon which to attempt to formulate understanding concepts.
Okay.
Amen.
So since we don't have any concept of the absolute, it's hard for us to even imagine it then, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
We have no basis for it.
We have no basis. That's right.
The primordial status of infinity requires segmentation prior to human attempts at comprehension. There is a unity in infinity which has been expressed in these papers as the I Am, the premier postulate of the creature mind. But never can a creature understand how it is that this unity becomes duality, triunity, and diversity, while yet remaining an unqualified unity. Man encounters a similar problem when he pauses to contemplate the undivided deity of Trinity alongside the plural personalization of God.
Okay, so when we talk about the unqualified absolute or unqualified unity, when you talk about primordial matter out past the 7 super universes and out past the outer space levels, when you start talking about things like that, we don't have any concept of such a place or being, okay? And when we contemplate problems like that. We don't have any basis for anything, and we run into the same thing when we try to think about the Trinity. We can study the Trinity, we can learn about the Trinity, but really the Trinity itself is way beyond our personal comprehension, isn't it? I mean, how can God be three in one? You know, we have nothing to relate to that in our own lives, so it's hard for us to understand it. It's just all there is to it.
I mean, I'm sure I have a very simplistic view of it, but this is, to be honest with you, this is one thing I have never had a whole lot of trouble with. To me, it's God in a different form.
It is.
I just don't have a lot of trouble with it. You know, like I said, I started out saying I'm sure that the way that I think about it is very simplistic, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of get it. I've always gotten it.
Well, it's interesting too when you think of God, the Trinity. You have to think of the seven absolutes. They are part of God the Father, aren't they?
Yep.
Some of them had different personalities, but they're still part of God the Father. They're still part of the I Am. Right. So you have to think of the Trinity kind of like you do the seven absolutes: God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit. Paradise is part of God, but it's not a deity part of God, right? And then you got the deity absolute, the qualified absolute, or in the universal absolute, and the unqualified absolute, right? All of these, some of these are really deities within themselves, but some of them are not deity at all, like paradise and the unqualified absolute, right? But they're still part of God the Father. They're part of the I Am. So it's hard for us to hang a label on something that is deity and is not deity at the same time, right? You know, so
Well,
God.
I'm simplifying it too, but we all do the same thing. I have been a wife, a mother, a daughter. I'm a different person when I go to the quilt group. I'm a different person when I'm working in Habitat. I'm a different person when I go to the garden club. These are parts of me, but they all make up me.
That's right. That's a perfect example,
That is
Millie.
good.
That was very good, man. That was good.
That's a
For all of
perfect.
these examples in the book, they have big long names with issues and misses and absolutenesses and stuff after them. And that's hard to comprehend, these big words. But when you knock it all down to one person being lots of things, and there are a lot of people out there who are doing much more than I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the gardener, I'm the housekeeper, I'm the dishwasher, the cook.
Yeah.
That's all me.
Yeah.
But it's me in different phases.
Yeah. And with God, it's the same thing, only they're different personalities too. So,
Don't you think I change my personality when I'm working at the cash register at Habitat with all those people that come through?
Of
And
course
I
you
put a
do.
smiley face in spite of them.
It's a good analogy.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, that's
It
great.
really is. Okay. All
Just
right.
can't comprehend all these terms they use for all the different ways God experiences himself.
Right. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do, is introduce him to us. Okay. It is only distance.
It is only man's distance from infinity that causes this concept to be expressed as one word. While infinity is on the one hand unity, on the other hand it is diversity, without end or limit. Infinity, as it is observed by finite intelligences, is the maximum paradox of creature philosophy and finite metaphysics. Though man's spiritual nature reaches up in the worship experience to the Father, who is infinite, man's intellectual comprehension capacity is exhausted by the maximum conception of the Supreme Being. Beyond the Supreme, concepts are increasingly names. Less and less are they true designations of reality. More and more do they become the creature's projection of finite understanding towards the superfinite. So past the Supreme, it's hard for us to even come up with a concept, right? It's the Supreme is part of us. It's part of our experience. Past that, we don't have any reference points, right? None whatsoever. So it's hard for us to even come up with this. Okay. One basic conception of the absolute level involves a postulate of three phases. One, the original, the unqualified concept of the first source and center. That source manifestation of the I Am, which all reality takes origin.
And you don't see this, Millie, but on my slide I put the postulate I am. The third level of Trinity of Trinities. We studied this the last few weeks. The ultimate integration of reality, currently split into 7 absolutes of infinity, and we just went through those, right? Okay, this is the 3 phases. Let's go on. You want to take the next one, the actual?
The actual.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it.
Oh.
I got out of order. Linda, would you take the actual? 2?
The actual, the union of the 3 absolutes of actuality, the second, third, and paradise sources and centers, the triodity of the eternal Son, the infinite Spirit, and the paradise isle constitutes the actual revelation of the originality of the first source and center.
Okay, so this is the first triodity, okay? And this is the triodity of actuality, not potentiality, but actuality, okay? And that triodity, the reason it's called a triodity is what? It's not got God the Father involved in it, okay? So it's not a triunity, it's a triodity. It's odd, okay, of actuality. That's the eternal Son, the conjoint actor, and paradise. That's the triodity. Now, what's odd about it is it has paradise, which is a non-deity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it does not involve the Father. Okay, let me read this little thing from 1151:6. The eternal Son is the absolute of spirit reality. Absolute. He's part of the Trinity. Okay, the absolute of personality. The paradise isle is the absolute of cosmic reality, the physical part of reality, okay? The absolute pattern, the pattern everything is built on, okay? The conjoint actor is the absolute of mind reality. You see the difference? The Son's the spirit, the conjoint actor is mind. The coordinate of absolute spirit reality and the existential deity synthesis of personality and power. So it allows these 3 to come together. This triune association eventuates the coordination of the sum total of actualized spirit, reality, spirit, cosmic, or mindal. It is unqualified in actuality. Okay, so this is the actual part, the second part of this, the actual part of what did we just say? Let me go back up here.
This triodity, is that what you're talking about?
The actual part of the concept of the absolute levels. Okay, it's the actual part. There's 3 parts: the original, the actual, and potential. This is the actual. Okay. All right. Let's go one further. Millie, would you take the potential? The next one. Sorry. Your mic's off, Millie.
Okay. Number 3, the potential. The union of the 3 absolutes of potentiality, the deity, unqualified, and universal absolutes. These triodities of existential potentiality constitutes the potential revelation of the original of the first source and center.
Okay, so this is the triodity, not to the triodity of potentiality. We just looked at the actual, which is the triodity of the actual, right? Actuality. So this is the triodity of potentiality, and it includes the deity absolute, which is latent spirit energy, the universal absolute, which is the latent mind energy, and the unqualified absolute is the latent cosmic energy. Now, do y'all see how this comes together, why it's a triodity? You have 2 parts of this that is spirit and mind, and both of those are deity, okay? And then you have a third part that is cosmic. That's the physical part. That's the unqualified absolute. That is the non-deity part. Do you see that? So that's what makes it a triodity. It's got 2 deities and 1 non-deity. Okay? 2 of them are spirit and mind. The other part is physical or cosmic. That makes sense? All right.
It's the uninhabited cosmic space.
It's the uninhabited cosmic space, outer space, right? And I put another slide after this, and y'all can look at it at your leisure. But I just want to read this. There's a non-deity part, space concealed in the unqualified absolute, right? That's a non-deity part. There's a deity part, which is the deity absolute or the qualified absolute, right? They interchange names there on us. Okay, and then you have the universal absolute. And this is the infinity unity of the Father, the universal absolute. What do you think it involves in that? That's probably mind, spirit, and matter all together, right? Wouldn't that make sense? The universal absolute. And that's the Father's infinity potential, the three absolutes. Okay? Does that make that clear a little bit? Okay. Let's go on. You want to take the next paragraph?
The inner association of the original, the actual, and the potential yields the tensions within infinity, which result in the possibility for all universe growth. And growth is the nature of the sevenfold, the supreme and the ultimate.
Okay, so we have the original, which is paradise, right? And all the deities. God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, and all the seven absolutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the actual. The actual is everything that exists today, right? Everything. The mind, the spirit, and the matter, right? Everything that's real to us. And then we have the potential, and this is the unqualified absolute. This is the tension that pulls us out into infinity, right? The unqualified. It's that tension that keeps pulling everything out farther and farther and farther, and that's why there is no end, isn't it? Because of that potential. It's always there, right? So that potential, that tension of potential creates infinity. It just keeps going on and on and on and on. And universe growth that they're talking about here, that's the nature of God the sevenfold, right? All the creator sons, the creative mother spirit, the ancients of days, the seven master spirits, the architects of the master universe, paradise, God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit. All of these are incorporated in that universe growth, right? And all of those creates what? Experience, and that builds the supreme. And what does the supreme build? The supreme builds the ultimate, right? It just keeps on building on itself, doesn't it? Okay. B. In the association of deity, universal and unqualified absolutes, potentiality is absolute while actuality is emergent. Isn't that interesting? In the association of the second, third, and paradise sources of center, actuality is absolute while potentiality is emergent. In the originality of the first source and center, we cannot say that either actuality or potentiality is either existent or emergent. The Father is. Did y'all catch all that? So let's think about this. In the association of these three absolutes, the deity, the universal, and the unqualified, potentiality as absolute while actuality is emergent. Okay? So when you mix them all together, that potential is always, always, always going to be there. It never stops. While actuality, because actuality is already in existence, it creates something that emerges constantly experienced, doesn't it? Okay? In the association of the first, the second, third, and paradise sources and centers, okay, that's the triodity. Actuality is absolute. In other words, everything's perfect, isn't it, in paradise? And with God the Son and God the Spirit, everything is already perfect. But their potential is constantly emerging over and over and over and over again. Okay, so what is not emerging? The first source and center. Because God already sees everything from beginning to end. Everything is actual to God. It's not emerging, it already is. Okay? So what we're talking about here is the will of God. God wills something to being, and it never stops, does it? So you have to think of it that way. So God never has anything emergence because he already knows it's coming, right? There's no surprises to him. Everything already is. There's no such thing as potential and actuals, is there? Because everything is real to God. He already knows what's going to happen. Does that make that a little clearer?
It does, yeah.
Okay. Linda, you take the next one, please.
Okay. From the time viewpoint, the actual is that which was and is. The potential is that which is becoming and will be. The original is that which is. From the eternity viewpoint, the differences between the original, the actual, and the potential are not thus apparent. These triune qualities are not so distinguished on paradise eternity levels. In eternity, all is, only has all not yet been revealed in time and space.
That's self-explanatory, isn't it?
It's jet lag.
It's like jet lag. That's right. Yeah. From if you had the big viewpoint, these differences don't hardly exist, do they? But to us, because we're just finite little beings, we can see what's coming, can't we? So it's just, I guess it depends on where you're looking at it from. It's kind of
I was just going to say some of us can.
So some of us can. It's kind of like that song From a Distance. There's Bill Harris. Hang on, maybe he's trying to.
Hey, he just popped up. He's online.
Okay. Hey, Bill. I didn't get him. Bill. Hey, you want to join us? I just saw you popped up. Yeah, Millie said something. But let me find the right mouse, and I'll get you in here. All right. Here he is.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill. Okay. Bill, we just finished. We're at 115.312, page 1260.
312.
Yeah, page 1262.
Okay, I don't have the book, so I'm going to have to.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and pull it up online there.
Okay.
Did you happen to get our slides today? It's
Yes,
slide
I did. And I got those opened up too, so
Okay,
I don't know which slide you're on.
24.
24, okay.
You can just go there and follow along there if you want to.
Good to see you, Bill. We missed you.
Well, thank you.
Yep, we have missed you, Bill.
You too. Did y'all have fun?
Yeah, we did in Alaska. Yeah, I took about 3,000 pictures. So
Okay, good.
We did.
we did. Yeah, we did. I should say. Okay,
All right.
from a creature viewpoint. Okay, who just read?
I think
Linda.
I
Millie
think
would.
Millie's turn. Yeah.
All right, Millie, would you take the next one? I get talked. I forget.
From a creature's viewpoint, actuality is substance. Potentiality is capacity. Actuality exists centermost and expands therefrom into peripheral infinity. Potentiality comes inward from the infinite periphery and converges at the center of all things. Originality is that which first causes and then balances the dual motions of the cycle of reality metamorphosis from potentials to actuals and the potentializing of existing actuals.
Okay,
And
so
I have no idea what that says.
okay, so that it's basically saying from our viewpoint, actuality is what we see and feel, right? Actuality is all the things that's real to us right now. Potentiality is that which is coming. It's capacity for the future. Okay? Actuality exists centermost in our life. In other words, we deal with actuality constantly. We almost never deal with potentiality and periphery into the infinity, right? because we're
Mhm.
constantly dealing with things in our life over and over and over and over, right? And infinity just converges into the center of all things. In other words, infinity goes both directions to us, into paradise, out to the extent of this seven master or the seven universes, out past all everything. It just goes both directions. Okay, so infinity doesn't mean much to us. Okay, the thing we do understand that there is an originality, a first cause and center, right? Which is what? Paradise and God the Father. And it's this understanding of there is a paradise, there is a God the Father. That concept merges with our actuality, with our life, okay, and things we're thinking about and the potentials of our life. And that makes them real to us, the existing actuals, okay? All right, does that make sense? Okay. So, Bill, would you take the next one, the three absolutes?
Okay. The three absolutes of potentiality are operative on a purely eternal level of the cosmos.
Okay, Bill, go ahead. I'm sorry. Just
Okay.
start that paragraph over if you would.
The three absolutes of potentiality are operative on the purely eternal level of the cosmos, hence never function as such sub-absolute level. On the descending level of reality, the triodity of potentiality is manifest with the ultimate and upon the supreme. The potential may fail. Time acts
Actualize.
respect it says sub absolute level, but never in the aggregate. The will of God does ultimately prevail, not always concerning the individual, but invariably concerning the total.
Okay, so what they're saying here is these three absolutes of potentiality, okay? To us, some of these things don't seem like they're coming into existence, okay? And from a creature or finite viewpoint, some of these things don't seem to ever come into existence. But that does not mean over time that they won't, because the will of God always wins out, regardless of what happens. So if this is God's plan to expand the cosmos and to keep building on and on and on and on, even though we see setbacks and some parts of that doesn't seem like it's ever going to take place, it actually will, because to God it's already happened and it's the will of God. And when something's the will of God, it always finishes. Okay? That's what they're saying. That's a hard concept to us. So if you look at it from a absolute level or a paradise level, nothing ever doesn't come into existence as the will of God. But from a finite level, the way we look at things, always it looks like to us nothing ever gets done, does it? Okay? We see the earth around us, we see all the mess this planet's in, and we think, well, this never straighten out. It won't straighten out in our lifetime probably, but we think it's never going to straighten out. But in reality, it's the will of God that this planet reaches light and life. So it's going to happen. It may not happen in our lifetime. It may not happen in our kids' lifetime. It may not happen in their grandkids or their grandkids or their grandkids, but it will happen eventually. So you can take that to the bank, okay? So something's the will of God. It will come into existence, right? And that's what they're saying here. It's our lack of understanding that we don't understand this. Okay, let's go to the next one.
It is in the triodity of actuality that the existence of the cosmos had their center, be it spirit, mind, or energy, all centered in this association of the sun, the spirit, and paradise. The personality of the spirit sun is the master pattern for all personality throughout all universes. The substance of the paradise isle is the master pattern of which Havona is a perfect, and the super-universes are a perfecting revelation. The conjoint actor is at one and the same time the mind activation of cosmic energy, the conceptualization of spirit purpose, and the integration of the mathematical causes and effects of the material levels with the volitional purposes and motives of the spiritual level. In and to a finite universe, the sun, spirit, and paradise function in and upon the ultimate as he is conditioned and qualified in the supreme.
Okay, so let's break this down. This is a pretty important paragraph here. This talks about the triodity of actuality. Okay, remember the two triodities? The triodity of actuality and the triodity of potentiality. Okay, that's the two triodities. Okay? And what they're talking about here is the triodity of actuality, which involves the universal sun, the universal spirit, and paradise, right? So we have the controller of all spirit existence, right? The sun. We have the spirit is the controller of what? All mindal existence, right? And paradise. And in association, the spirit also controls the spirit and this physical and mindal all together, don't they? Okay? So we have the substance of the Isle of Paradise, the master pattern, which is controlled by whom? The universal spirit, right? The master spirit. Okay? And then we have Havona, which is perfect. Okay, I'm sorry. Which is perfecting, right? We have paradise that's perfect, and we have Havona that's perfecting, right? We also have what? The super universes. They are also perfecting, aren't they? They're the finite. They're the least of the perfect. Okay? So it talks about here the conjoint actor is at one and the same time controlling the mind activation, controlling the energy, which is what? The physical, right? And the concepts of the spirit, and they're integrating, the conjoint actor is integrating all three of this. Do you see that? Okay? For the volitional purposes of the motive of the spiritual level. In other words, what? The deity is controlling all this. And what is involved in doing this? The supreme. Okay? This is involved in this control. Okay, so we have the finite universe, the sun, spirit, and paradise function in upon the ultimate, and he is conditioned and qualified by the supreme. So the supreme's right in the middle of all this stuff going on, isn't it? Does that make sense? So without the supreme, would all of this work? No, it wouldn't. That's a hard concept for us to get. This eventualizing supreme is an integral part of the Paradise Trinity. Do you see that? Without the supreme controlling this experience, then the will of God would not be coming into existence, would it?
Yes, because he's already laid it out for us to do.
Because he's laid it out. That's right. That's right. That's a hard concept, but it's there. Okay. I'm skipping ahead one slide, and I'm going to talk about this, Millie. I know you can't see it. But this is the dual triodities, the non-father triune relationships. The first one is the triodity of actuality. That's the sun, the paradise, and the conjoint actor. That's the three working in the first triodity of actuality. We got that, right? The triality of potentiality. Now, this is things that's going to happen in the future, isn't it? The potential, okay? And that involves the qualified, or the deity absolute, the unqualified absolute, and the universal absolute. Does that make sense? That's the other triodity, the triodity of potentiality. Okay, so let's go on one more. Would you take the next one? Oh, is it my turn? Okay. 315, actuality of deity, is what man seeks in the paradise ascent. Potentiality of human divinity. Y'all see that? Is what man evolves in that search. The original is what makes possible the coexistence and the integration of man the actual, man the potential, and man the eternal. There it all is. That spells out what we're doing right there in that one paragraph. Does that make sense? actuality of deity. You see that of deity? They put it in brackets. It's what man seeks in the paradise ascent. So our job is to become deity, isn't it? That's what it's saying here. Okay? Our potential, our human divinity, is evolving over time. As we're going to paradise, that's what we're doing. We're building our divinity. Okay? And what makes that possible is the original. What's the original? That's God the Father, isn't it? And coexistence with man. What is that? That's your thought adjuster, isn't it? Okay? So man's potential is wrapped up in the adjuster. Do you see that? Us fusing with the adjuster is the most important thing that we do on this trail back to God. Right? That's the actuality of deity. That tells us what the thought adjuster does right there. So we become deity by fusing with the thought adjuster, don't we? This explains all this I've been talking about, how we're part of deity. Okay. Linda, would you take the next one?
The final dynamics of the cosmos have to do with...
Linda, I lost your... I barely hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, I
Yeah.
can't. No, I can't. Yeah.
Okay, let me turn.
Okay.
The final dynamics of the cosmos have to do with the continual transfer of reality from potentiality to actuality. In theory, there may be an end to this metamorphosis, but in fact, such is impossible since the potential and the actual are both encircuited in the original, the I am, and this identification makes it forever impossible to place a limit on the developmental progression of the universe. Whatsoever is identified with the I am can never find an end to progression, since the actuality of the potentials of the I am is absolute, and the potentiality of the actuals of the I am is also absolute. Always will actuals be opening up new avenues of the realization of hitherto impossible potentials. Every human decision not only actualizes a new reality in human experience, but also opens up a new capacity for human growth. The man lives in every child, and the Morancha progressor is resident in the mature, God-knowing man.
Okay, man, what a beautiful paragraph. It really is. You know, it tells us how our actuals, our potentials turn into actuals, doesn't it? Through the I am, through God the Father, doesn't it? All right, and God the Father is absolute, and He's always going to open up new avenues of growth and expansion for us, isn't He? It's just going to go on forever. So when you fuse with that thought adjuster, you never, never die, do you? You just go on and on and on, and new experiences are constantly being thrown in front of us, and these experiences add to the supreme. Okay, so in every man is God, right? And every man is our child, our Morancha progressor, and it matures in every man that knows God. Isn't that not beautiful? What a wonderful, wonderful concept. Okay.
It's kind of scary knowing you're never going to get through.
Yeah, I know. It is. There is no such thing as end. It's going to say that
Go
here.
into it.
That's right. You want to read the next one, Millie?
Statics in growth can never appear in the total cosmos, since the basis for growth, the absolute actuals, is unqualified, and since the possibilities for growth, the absolute potentials, are unlimited. From a practical viewpoint, the philosophers of the universe have come to the conclusion that there is no such thing as an end.
Didn't you just say that, Millie?
There is no end.
There is no end. No such thing as an end, is there? Just keeps going on and on. It's better than the Energizer Bunny, isn't it?
It really is.
It really is. Okay. Bill, you want to take the next paragraph?
Okay. From a circumscribed view, there are indeed many ends, many terminations of activity. But from a larger viewpoint, on a higher universe level, there are no endings, merely transitions from one phase of development to another. The major chronicity of the master universe is concerned with the several universe ages, the Havana, the super universe, and the outer universe ages. But even these basic divisions of sequence relationships cannot be more than relative landmarks on the unending highway of eternity.
So it just
I
keeps
love
going
that.
on.
Unending
Good.
highway of eternity.
Unending highway of
Yeah.
eternity. Okay, we have terminations of activities, but we go right into another activity, don't we? Right? And I love this transitions from one phase of development to another. Isn't that what happens when we leave this
Yes.
planet? We transit. It's just a transition into our Marancha phase, right? Into one type of reality to another. Okay, we got one more here. You want to take the last one?
The final penetration of the truth, beauty, and goodness of the Supreme Being could only open up to the progressing creature those absentite qualities of ultimate divinity, which lie beyond the concept levels of truth, beauty, and goodness.
So do y'all see that? We're going to start understanding what? Absentite qualities, right?
Right.
The next level. We go from the finite to the absentite to the absolute. You see that? It's just a progression. That's all there is to it. So this concept of the absentite's not all that strange, is it? It's just the stepping stone into the absolute. Okay, and that's what our thought adjuster is going to help us do, and that's what all those guardian or all those ministering spirits are going to teach us as we go through Havana, right? Okay, we're at number 4, and it's 9 o'clock, so we need to quit here. So we'll take it up at number 4 next time. Let me stop the recording, and we'll have a couple words here. I'll find the right mouse. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again.